I'd like to call our meeting to order. It is 6 p.m. and declare that we do have a board quorum present. If you will please stand for our invocation, which I will lead, and then our pledges of allegiance, which will be led by Mr. Chris Dunn. Bow your head. Father God, we thank you for another precious day. God, we appreciate this wonderful country that we have the freedom to live in. God, we thank you for this great community that we get to be a part of and that we get to be servant leaders in. Father, thank you so much for our district and for all of our people here. Father, especially our children. God, help us to just do our very best as we make decisions, God, that we would always keep them first and foremost in our mind in all that we think and all that we deliberate over. Father, thank you for a precious day. Father, be with all those who are working outside in the heat. And Father, just thank you for this nice, cool room that we all get to be a part of. Lord, just forgive us, Lord, when we make mistakes. In your Son's precious and holy name. Amen.
Join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now the Texas pledge.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
I'd like to ask our board to begin making its way to the front and transition into our awards, achievements, and recognition time. Ms. Carla Christmas.
Good evening, Mr. Howard, Superintendent Massey, board members, our guests, and our family here. Tonight, we have several things to recognize, several people to recognize. Our first presenter will be Mr. Aaron Ennis. If you will come join us.
Mr. Ennis.
This past May, Houston-based Spectrum Camera Solutions joined BISD CTE Major Giving Campaign with an investment of $25,000. With this new partnership, Spectrum becomes the first audio, visual, and information technology-based organization to join BISD CTE Major Giving Campaign. Spectrum manufactures a full range of globally certified explosion-proof camera housing systems to monitor hazardous areas. Founded in 2012, Spectrum has an unparalleled background as a world leader in hazardous area vision systems, featuring intrinsically safe cameras. Spectrum systems help maintain process security and safety, and their innovative explosion-proof camera housings are made from durable materials and innovative engineering to ensure operational excellence. Spectrum's mission is to provide explosion-protected solutions with the latest technologies driven by mainstream markets. Through this partnership with Spectrum, BISD can continue to expand CTE in areas such as audio, visual, information technology, and in the manufacturing space. To quote Spectrum CEO Lee Rice, technical programs within CTE provide essential skills contributing to communities' economic health and growth. At BISD, we too believe that programs such as CTE provide a bright future for our students to be future leaders that will go on to grow our community. Here tonight to accept our BISD board recognition is Vice President of Spectrum Camera Solutions, Efren Garcia, and CEO, Mr. Lee Rice. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Hopefully none of our bills need explosion-proof cameras. Hope we don't need it. Yeah. Oh, you will.
And I want to make sure, I want to make sure you're either on either side of the screen. All right. I'll take a couple and then 1, 2, 3. And the second.
It didn't flash.
It didn't?
Oh, no, it had to, go ahead. It just had to wake up.
Oh, okay. I'll do 2 more. 1, 2, 3. Oh, yeah.
and do yours, and
Okay.
mine will be a backup.
I thought you were maybe leading this morning.
You have an app.
We're just being silly.
Make sure, it's not in my way. I haven't moved it.
Sorry.
No, don't be. All right. Certificates up straight. I need to check on that. All right. Right here, 1, 2, 3, and my second, 1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
Now, my pleasure to invite up Athletic Director, Mr. Jay Zeller, to do the next two presentations.
Good evening, trustees, Mr. Massey, guests. Tonight, we are extremely proud to recognize several members of our outstanding BISD athletic program, including 2 multi-sport athletes. Our first recognition this evening is Coach Richard Sincere. Coach Sincere needs no introduction. As you all know, Coach Sincere was promoted to campus coordinator and head football coach in May after former head football coach Mark Knipes retired. During our nearly month-long search, Coach Sincere helped keep the main thing at Brazosport High School. While continuing to train Xavier in his run at the UIL State Track and Field Championships, Coach Sincere, along with the help of several other dedicated coaches, kept the Exporter football team focused on the mission of getting better every day during off-season workouts. Coach was announced to the football team and campus in mid-May. He wasted no time in beginning his tenure as the leader of the Exporter football team and athletic programs. I'm excited to work alongside Coach Sincere and see the visions we each have for the Exporter programs and the campus as a whole take shape. We got to see a little bit of that leadership at work in May, and I look forward to seeing his impact at Brazosport High School in 2023-2024. Coach Sincere is joined this evening by his wife Haley and son Trace. His daughter Kylie was unable to join us.
What's up, brother? How you doing?
Okay, you ready? What's your name?
Trace.
Trace.
Better shoot it quick.
Making Jesse laugh.
Okay. Leading off our athlete recognition this evening is Lady Buck Brooklyn Baker. Brooklyn just completed her junior year at Brazoswood High School. Brooklyn is accompanied this evening by campus coordinator Jodelle Carey. Along with excelling in her academic endeavors, Brooklyn is a varsity volleyball team member that earned a trip to the playoffs in a very competitive 24 6A district. Tonight, we're here to celebrate Brooklyn's track and field season, specifically her path to the UIL state meet in the triple jump. Brooklyn advanced from the 24 6A meet to the area meet and then to the Region 3 championships. The top 2 finishers at each regional championship automatically qualify for the state meet, with the best qualifying 3rd place finish from each of the 4 regions advancing in the 9th position. With a jump of 39 feet, 7.5 inches, Brooklyn earned the final spot and secured her place in Austin. Saturday, May the 13th, was anything but a typical track day. Delayed for hours by storms, the meet finally got underway. Brooklyn competed well on the big stage and finished in 8th place. We're looking forward to a great senior year and another shot at the triple jump in Austin in 2024.
You mean me and you?
Yeah. You don't mind.
Oh, we're all the way over, sorry about that.
Right here, smile, I get a couple, 1, 2, 3, and a second, 1, 2, 3.
Good job.
Okay, next up is exporter Xavier Butler. Xavier is accompanied tonight by recently named campus coordinator and head football coach Richard Sincere. Xavier just graduated from Brazosport High School and he recently committed to UTEP, University of Texas at El Paso, to continue his education and run track. Xavier didn't just excel in track though. He was a member of the bi-district champion exporter football team. Tonight we're here to celebrate Xavier's track and field season. He didn't just advance from the 26 4A meet to the area meet and to the Region 4 championships. He was the meet champion at all 3 meets in both the 100-meter and 200-meter. He punched his ticket to Austin as the Region 4 100-meter and 200-meter champion. Thursday, May the 11th, was his day to shine on the track at Mike Myers Stadium. Xavier competed well in front of a large crowd, finishing second in the 100-meter with a time of 10.54 seconds, earning him a trip to the podium in the awards tent. Just 90 minutes later, he faced the 200-meter. He set a new 200-meter school record with his 20.90-second finish, and finished in second, just 8/100ths of a second behind the first place finisher. We thank Xavier for his leadership during his time as an exporter and wish him well at UTEP.
Proud for you.
Sure, all right. 1, 2, 3, and the second, 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Congratulations.
Now my pleasure to bring up Deputy Superintendent, Mr. Jay Whitehead, with our next announcement.
Thank you. Tonight it is my pleasure to introduce to you the new principal of Lake Jackson Intermediate School, Ms. Cheryl Roberts. Cheryl, if you'll join Mr. Matt. Ms. Roberts is starting her 21st year in education and is excited to lead the Lake Jackson Intermediate School Panthers. She received her bachelor's degree of science from the University of Houston-Clear Lake and her Master's of Educational Leadership from Prairie View A&M. Ms. Roberts has completed 19 years in BISD as a teacher, assistant principal, the district coordinator of assessment and accountability. She has served as the associate principal at Brazoswood High School since 2014. Ms. Roberts has done an outstanding job leading the Brazoswood 9th Grade Center, which has received the Capturing Kids' Hearts National Showcase Award for the last 4 years. Ms. Roberts is an active member of the Texas Association of Secondary School Principals and presented last week at the summer conference on building and achieving a positive school culture. She is also a new member of Eta Omega in the Chapter Delta Kappa Gamma International Society for Key Women Educators. And last week, Ms. Roberts was announced as the Region 4 23-24 Assistant Principal of the Year. Joining Cheryl tonight is her husband and semi-retired BISD teacher coach, Mr. Curtis Roberts. If you'll come forward, please join me in welcoming Ms. Cheryl Roberts, your new Lake Jackson Intermediate School principal.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Yes, sir. I know better than that, I just did. Wait, move him over.
There you go. Right here. 1, 2, 3, and another 1, 2, 3.
It is now my pleasure to bring up Assistant Superintendent, Mr. Richard.
Thank you. I'd like to bring up Mr. Keith Fuller, principal at Rasco Middle School, as we recognize Rasco Middle School as a model professional learning community at work. Rasco Middle School has been recognized as a model professional learning community at work by Solution Tree, joining an elite group of schools and districts across the United States and Canada to receive this prestigious honor. The distinguished recognition from Solution Tree reflects Rasco Middle School's exceptional commitment to raising student achievement through the successful implementation of the professional learning communities at work process. Rasco Middle School stands along 5 other BISD campuses: Freeport Elementary, Polk Elementary, Velasco Elementary, Lanier Middle School, and Freeport Intermediate as model PLC schools, as well as the district, which was named as a model PLC at work district in 2020. BISD and these schools exemplify the core principles of PLCs, which emphasize a focus on learning, building a collaborative culture, and fostering a results-oriented approach. The recognition of model PLC schools is based on rigorous criteria, including a demonstrated commitment to PLC concepts, a minimum of 3 years of implementation, and clear evidence of improved student learning and outcomes over that period. Rasco Middle School successfully met these criteria, highlighting its dedication to the principles of PLCs and the positive impact on student achievement. Principal Keith Fuller expressed his pride in this achievement, saying that being a professional learning community has become ingrained in our school's practices as sustainable. Our collective culture of collaboration is now our way of life. As a result, Rasco Middle School is recognized as a recognized campus, showcasing our unwavering commitment to continuous improvement for all students. As we congratulate Mr. Fuller and the Rasco campus, we'd like to bring up Jennifer Ivey from Solution Tree to say a few words and present them with their recognition.
Thank you. Richard kind of said it all, so I'll just say a couple of things. But Mr. Massey and trustees, I'm honored to be with you this evening to recognize the success of Rasco Middle School. Solution Tree is proud to partner with Brazosport ISD to celebrate the growth of your educational community, teachers, leaders, and most importantly, your students. Rasco Middle School is one of only 95 model PLC schools in the state of Texas and only one of about 500 across the United States. The very foundation of professional learning communities at work is to build a lasting culture of learning with a daily focus on student achievement. Principal Fuller and his team have done just that. Because of their focus on collaboration and communication within their collaborative teams, they have increased capacity in both their teachers and their students. Rasco teachers have a sense of ownership and collective responsibility with their collaborative team and a common school-wide mission to educate, inspire, and empower all students. Congratulations.
Appreciate it all the way. Appreciate it so much. way. Okay, y'all just slide this way.
Flag a
Yeah,
little
come
bit,
this way a little
like,
bit.
I don't, it doesn't have to. Yeah, there you go. Is that better? Yeah, it'll, yeah. I'll be there. All right, everyone smile. Uh-huh. 1, 2, 3, and again, 1, 2, 3. Get yours.
Thank you, Solution Tree, and thank you, Mr. Yost. This does conclude our recognitions for this evening, but we'll come back in July with some more, I promise.
At this time, in accordance with BISD local, the board will provide an audience with individuals who signed up prior to the meeting to address the board. Tonight, we do not have any to requested to speak to the board. So the next item that we have will be the administer oath of office. In accordance with BBB legal, we will ask Ms. Kelly to administer the oath to the offices of elected trustees, Mr. Mason Howard and Mr. Scott Schwartz.
All right. Go for it. Go for it. Yes, I've got you a copy. Mason now, everyone. All right, so I need you both to raise your right hand and then repeat after me. We'll do one section at a time. So I, please state your name, do solemnly swear
I, Mason Howard, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of the trustee of the Brazosport Independent School District of the state of Texas,
that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of trustee of the Brazosport Independent School District of the state of Texas,
and will to the best of my ability preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States and of this state, so help me God.
And I will, to the best of my
ability preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States and of this state, so help me God.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Will everyone take a picture? Thank you.
I need to make my voice in.
2, 3, and another. 3.
It's a one-year term, right?
You look 99.
All right, next item that we have on our agenda is executive session. It may be called for the purposes permitted by the Texas Opens Meeting Act, Texas Government Code, Section 551.001 through 551.146, Sections 551.071, consultation with attorneys, Section 551.72, real property, Section 551.074, personnel matters, appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, dismissal, or complaint. We'll return shortly. Very short.
I'm a pain tonight. It's all right. Sorry. No. You're fine. It's fine. Just go wee, wee. You know it.
from executive session. The time is officially 6:35. We have our first action item, the election of board officers for the 22-23 school year in accordance with policy BDAA local. The board must elect the president, vice president, secretary, and assistant secretary for a term of 1 year. Do I have a recommendation?
I move that we elect Mason Howard as president, Scott Schwartner as vice president, Jerry Atkins as secretary, and Mr. Reinhardt as assistant secretary.
I second.
All right, is there any discussion? Any from the audience? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by nay? All right, that carries. Next item that we have on our agenda is a public hearing. We will now ask Ms. Rebecca Kelly to conduct a public hearing to discuss the federal grant applications for the 23-24 school year. This is a public hearing, so audience participation is invited at the conclusion of the presentation. Ms. Kelly.
Good evening. In alignment with board policy, CB local, and federal requirements, it is my pleasure to conduct a public hearing on 3 federal grant applications for the 23-24 school year. The 3 grants are the Every Student Succeeds Act, which includes Title I, Title II, Title III, and Title IV, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which includes IDEA-B formula and IDEA-B preschool, and then the Perkins federal grant application, which supports our CTE programs. Notice of the public hearing was published in the local newspaper on June 6th and also on our district website to give an opportunity for feedback and comments from the community. For the 23-24 school year, Brazosport ISD will have 13 Title I school-wide campuses. As a Title I school-wide campus, the Title I funds can be used to serve all students on that campus. The campus must, however, conduct a campus comprehensive needs assessment, maintain a campus improvement plan, and facilitate parent and family engagement activities. For a campus to qualify as a Title I school-wide campus and receive Title I funds, it must have at least 40% of its students identified as educationally, economically disadvantaged. Brazos Wood High School has 55.21% of its students ECOD, and then Lake Jackson has 59.62%, which are both over the 40% requirement to be served with Title I funds, but however are served with state Comp Ed funds instead. Overall, the percentage of economically disadvantaged students district-wide decreased from 71.7% last year to this year 69.3%. Title I Part A provides supplemental resources to improve the quality of education programs and to ensure that students from low-income families have opportunities to meet challenging state assessments. The majority of these funds are allocated to our Title I school-wide campuses based on a per-pupil amount. This year, the 23-24 planning amount for Title I Part A is $2,575,428, which is a decrease of $114,000 from last year. The Title I Part A funds will be utilized to provide campus-level intervention supports to struggling students before and after school, the salaries of intervention teachers and additional paraprofessionals, providing instructional materials and supplies that are supplemental, and then also professional development opportunities for our teachers. It will also provide training to teachers, administrators, and parents on the importance of working together and on implementing campus parent and family engagement activities. It will provide supplies and services to homeless students as needed. It will provide resources to our private nonprofits that choose to participate, and then it will provide some administrative cost support. Title II Part A funds are designated to increase student achievement through improving teacher and principal quality and increasing the number of highly qualified teachers in our classrooms and highly qualified principals leading our schools. The planning amount for 23-24 is $411,401, which is a $12,227,000 decrease from last year. Funds from this grant are used to provide district-wide literacy and math specialists, and academic dean of instruction, private nonprofit eligible participation, and help fund district-wide professional development. Title III Part A funds are utilized to develop programs for limited English proficient students to attain English proficiency. develop high levels of academic attainment, and meet the state content standards and student achievement standards. The planning amount for 23-24 is $145,223, which is an increase of $3,339 over last year. Title III Part A funds will be utilized for professional development, parent involvement, instructional resources, bilingual paraprofessional support, and district-wide parent and family liaisons. Title IV Part A funding is to improve student academic achievement by providing all students with access to a well-rounded education, improve school conditions for student learning, and improve the use of technology in our classrooms. The 23-24 planning amount for Title IV Part A is $204,675, which is a $7,239 increase in funding over last year. The Title IV Part A funding for 23-24 will be utilized to provide supports for safe and healthy students by providing health and safety specialists to Brazos Port and Brazos Wood High School, as well as Freeport Intermediate, Clute Intermediate, and Lake Jackson Intermediate. These funds also provide some support for communities and school caseworkers, professional development, and and resources to eligible participating nonprofits. Carl D. Perkins funds are used to strengthen career and technical education and develop a more fully academic knowledge, technical, and employability skills of our secondary education students who enroll in CTE programs and programs of study. The planning amount for Perkins grant for the 23-24 school year is $122,641, which is a decrease of $6,609 over last year. These funds will be used to support quality CTE programs. Individuals with Disability Act or IDEA-B formula provides supplemental resources to help ensure eligible students ages 3 through 21 with disabilities are provided a free, appropriate public education as required by federal statute. The goal of the Special Education Department is to provide collaborative support services in an environment that embraces all learners to successfully achieve their full potential. The planning amount for 23-24 is $2,639,201, which is a $74,186 increase over last year. The funds will be used to support appropriate staff to support academic and behavioral instruction and interventions, assessment and diagnosis, and support with the individual education plan. And then IDEA-B preschool provides supplemental resources to help ensure eligible students ages 3 through 5 with disabilities are provided a free, appropriate public education as required by federal statute. The 23-24 planning amount is $74,242, which is a $1,586 increase from last year. And this will fund teacher positions. And this is a public hearing, so I'll be happy to take any comments or questions from the board or from the audience.
Any questions from the board? From the audience? All right,
Thank you.
Rebecca. All right, we will close the public hearing. The next item that we have on our agenda is the consent agenda. Are there any items from the consent agenda that anyone would like to be pulled?
I move for approval.
Okay, it's been moved for approval by Mr. Fortner. Do we have a second? We have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by nay. Mr. Dunn, seconded. All right, that passes. The next item then that we have on our agenda are action items. Public comment will be allowed before a vote is taken on each item. The first item that we have is a selection of the Texas Association of School Boards delegates and alternates.
As a member of the Texas Association of School Boards, we are provided the opportunity to select a delegate to represent our district at the TASB Delegate Assembly in Dallas on September 30th, 2023. The purpose of the TASB delegation is to elect the TASB leadership, amend TASB bylaws, and adopt TASB advocacy agendas. The Board of Trustees must take action to either select the delegate and alternate or determine that the district will not participate in the delegate assembly this year. It is the administration's recommendation that Mr. Jerry Atkins be the TASB delegate, with Scott Schwertner being the
favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by nay. All right, that carries. Next item that we have on our action items is optional flexible school day program application and agreement with Graduation Alliance. Mr. Ron Redden.
Good evening. In alignment with Board Policy EHBC Legal and Local, along with Board Goal BISD, will provide a rigorous and relevant learning experience to ensure that every student will be future ready. It's my pleasure to seek Board approval and authorization to submit an application on behalf of the Brazos Success Academy to continue operating an optional flexible school day program. Texas Education Code Section 29.0822 includes a provision to offer the at-risk students of a qualifying campus with attendance flexibility that reduces the impact of absenteeism and that provides for average daily attendance funding. That provision is the optional flexible school day program. Before a student can participate in the optional flexible school day program, there must be an agreement in writing for the student's participation. That agreement must be signed by the student if the student is over 18 years of age, or by the student and the student's parent or person standing in parental relation to the student if the student is less than 18 years of age and not emancipated by marriage or order. The Brazos Success Academy, as a dropout recovery campus, is eligible to operate an optional flexible school day program under Texas Education Code Section 29.081E1 and must provide not less than 4 hours of instructional time per day, employ as faculty and administrators persons with baccalaureate or advanced degrees, provide at least one instructor for each 28 students, and perform satisfactorily according to performance indicators and accountability standards adopted for alternative education programs by the Commissioner. BSA meets all those requirements. Students enrolled in the optional flexible school day program must take the required state assessments as specified under Texas Education Code Section 39.023 during the regularly scheduled assessment calendar. While attending the optional flexible school day program, a student may be counted in average daily attendance for purposes of funding only for the actual number of contact hours the student receives, up to 43,200 minutes per year. Before submitting an optional flexible school day application, the Board of Trustees of a school board must include the optional flexible school day program as an item on a regular agenda for a board meeting and discuss the application to operate the program. In addition, the Board of Trustees of the school board must discuss the progress of the optional flexible school day program before approving and applying to operate the program for the next year. This slide serves as that report. This year, 14 students took advantage of an opportunity to move to an optional flexible school day program schedule. 5 of them graduated. 4 others will continue this summer and next fall, with one of them likely completing her work by the end of June and graduating. 3 students dropped out of school and 1 student withdrew to homeschool. Students accumulated 40,907 contact minutes, which equated to 681.87 contact hours. As a result, students accrued 154.45 days for which the district will receive an estimated $6,104 of additional ADA funding. Since students attended the program during normal school hours, no additional costs were required to operate the program in 2022-2023. Offering an optional flexible school day program will allow the Brazos Success Academy to provide flexible scheduling to students who work, students with children, students who are pregnant, students who only need to complete state testing in order to graduate and who are participating in testing tutorials, and students who have earned most of their credits to graduate but who no longer need to attend school for a full or half day to complete those credits. Qualifying Brazos Success Academy students can be enrolled in the optional flexible school day program to attend school at scheduled times that meet their individual needs. Those times will include after normal school hours or for specific times during the instructional day. This year, we are proposing adding an online option for students who who need the flexibility to work asynchronously. Mr. Whitehead will come now to tell you about Graduation Alliance.
Thank you, Mr. Redding. Good evening. I'd like to thank the Director of Guidance and Counseling, Ms. Allison Husso, as well as Ms. Julie Engelking and Mr. Redden for their part in reviewing the Graduation Alliance program as an option for Brazosport ISD. Graduation Alliance offers a TEA-approved online option flexible school day program for BSA students. The primary purpose of Graduation Alliance is to help students in grades 9 through 12 who have already dropped out of school to graduate from high school with a diploma. Students who complete high school through the Graduation Alliance program will graduate as a BISD student. Graduation Alliance will actively recruit students who have dropped out to enroll in the program and complete high school. Enrolled students will have the flexibility of logging into their classes at any time. Graduation Alliance students will be enrolled in BISD through BSA and will accrue attendance funding for each course they complete each semester up to 240 minutes per day. To support students, Graduation Alliance uses certified teachers to provide instructions, tutors to support students, coaches to provide guidance, and a local advocate to serve as a mentor. For those students who lack the needed technology to participate in the program, Graduation Alliance provides laptops and internet access to students as needed. Each of the last 2 years, more than 80 BISD students in grades 9 through 12 dropped out of school. The average age of these students was 17.1 years, which for most students equates to either their junior or senior year. The average grade level of the 82 dropouts this year was 10.1, which means that most of them were a full year or more behind in their credits. The most common reasons why these students dropped out of school are they lose hope that they can pass their credits for the year, they get too far behind and see graduation as impossible. Some of the students had given birth to a child and lacked consistent child care. Other students had to get a full-time job. Many were living on their own or were homeless. A few of the students who dropped out of school this year did so to avoid completing an assignment at the DAAP or the JJAAP. Each fall and throughout the year, BISD administrators, PEIMS clerks, attendance officers, and other campus and district personnel spend countless hours recovering missing or dropout students. Last year, these efforts resulted in recovering 104 students. We will continue to do this as a part of finding these students, as we have in the past. With the addition of Graduation Alliance, we will have another layer of support and another option for those students who have dropped out of school to have the opportunity to graduate. Thank you. Ron will now return to talk more about the optional flexible school day program application.
There we go. I provided each of you with the 3 parts of the optional flexible school day program application in the board book. You have the application, the Appendix 3 document that describes both the on-site and online program offerings, and Appendix 5, a spreadsheet the TEA uses to record when and where the program will be offered. Approval of the optional flexible school day program is for 1 year and can be renewed following a review by the Board of Trustees and the submission of another application. The program is subject to reporting requirements to TEA, and this year I included our annual report at the beginning of the on-site answers to Appendix 3. BSA estimates that up to 20 students will participate in the on-site program at various times during the school year, while we estimate that up to 50 students will participate in Graduation Alliance. The on-site program will run from August 16th, 2023 to June 28th, 2024, Monday through Friday during the school year and Monday through Thursday during summer school. The online program will run year-round, beginning 30 days from the submission of the application. BSA will offer 375 flexible minutes per day during the school year and 360 minutes per day during summer school. Graduation Alliance will credit students who complete courses during a semester with 60 minutes per day per course, up to 240 minutes per day. Students can attend face-to-face classes, credit recovery, STAR EOC tutorial sessions, and if passed through Graduation Alliance, they can attend online. The application must be submitted at least 30 days prior to the start date of the program, so it is our intent to submit the application no later than this Thursday, June 22nd. We have two recommendations this evening. Our first recommendation is that the Board of Trustees approve the agreement with Graduation Alliance to provide an online optional flexible school day program. Our second recommendation is that the Board of Trustees authorize the Brazos-Port Independent School District to submit an application to operate an optional flexible school day program at the Brazos Success Academy. At this time, we'd be happy to answer any clarifying questions that you all might have.
Any questions from the board? I have one. Is this just something that we decided, or was there kids coming to us asking for this potential option for the computer or the?
This is something that we initiated, but we have had kids that are 19, 20-year-olds that have dropped out and want to come back. A couple of instances this year at our LLC where we've had a kid come for a day or two, but he had dropped out last year, wanted to come back. So this is available to those kids. And this program really focuses on those kids that we've tried everything to get back in. And we sometimes don't even know where the student is. So they go out and search for that kid after we've exhausted all of our resources.
Okay.
What is the cost for the program?
So what happens with the program, and it's in the agreement, that they bill us after we receive the funding for that student attendance. So the optional flexible school day program allows us to collect revenue based on that student being enrolled in our BSA, and they bill us the amount for up to 92%, 90%, depending on the number that we enroll. So those students that would get us nothing, we'll be collecting minimum 8% on.
I think the opportunity to give kids another chance is important here.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
I'm encouraged that some of them 19 or 20 want to give it another shot.
We have some every year that want to come back, and they can't go back in the younger peers, and it just doesn't fit, so.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
that's all. Do we need to do this one at a time, or do we do it both?
First motion, yes.
It'd be one
Depends on the
motion or two?
Do we do one recommendation at a time, or do we do both of them together? What do you think?
We'll do one at a time. So the first recommendation is that you approve the agreement with Graduation Alliance, and the second recommendation is that you support the authorized for the optional flexible school day program. So we can start with recommendation one.
Okay.
I'm moving to approve recommendation one.
All right, it's been moved by Mr. Reinhardt to approve recommendation one. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Patty Sayes. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by nay. And then we have a second recommendation. Do I hear a motion concerning our second recommendation? I'll make a motion to approve the second. All right, it's been moved by Mr. Dunn. Do I have a second for that?
Second.
Second by Ms. Cuellar. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by nay. All right, that carries as well. Thank you.
Thank you, this is a great thing.
Thank you to, Ms. Hosso and Ms. Engelking.
Absolutely.
Mr. Redden for getting this kind of cranked up.
Thank you all very much.
All right, next item that we have on our agenda are reports. Public comments will be allowed on each report. Our first report is the 23-24 budget assumptions and anticipated expenditures. I don't know what you're gonna tell us, but after this, last week, could be anything.
I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible.
Ms. Kelly.
So, in alignment with the district goal that Brazos-Port ISD will exercise fiscal responsibility to ensure financial strength and secure the resources to equip and maintain quality facilities and educational programming, tonight it is my pleasure to provide an update on the 2024 budget development process. 2 months away from adopting the 2024 budget and the 2023 tax rate. Budgeting in a legislative year is always challenging, and this year is certainly no exception. We anticipated all legislative changes would be wrapped up in the regular session, but unfortunately, that is not the case, which leaves us even more uncertainty, especially as it relates to adopting a balanced budget and the tax rate for 2023. With more than a $30 billion state surplus and what started as a very promising legislative session, it ended without any meaningful reform for adequately funding public education, especially as it relates to inflation. Lawmakers in both chambers did successfully pass the one bill that they are required to pass, which is the General Appropriations Act, or House Bill 1. It was very apparent that funding for schools and pay raises for our teachers was held hostage in this budget by being tied to private school vouchers. House Bill 1 author Greg Bonin told the Texas House that this is the biggest increase in state funding for public education in Texas history. Let me clarify his misleading comment. The $12.3 billion that they appropriated for property tax relief is above the current law compression, and it might be an investment into the foundation school program to balance the state share of current funding and/or reduce recapture, but it's not an investment into public education. House Bill 1 did appropriate $8.6 billion with what lawmakers are saying were new dollars into public education, but some of that was contingent upon the legislation that failed to pass, and some of it was a restoration of previous funding cuts. So the slide, or the graph on the right shows the $8.6 billion that they're saying was new money into the system, and in actuality there was a total of 3.7 that was new money. And so the $3.99 billion for school finance and increased teacher compensation was contingent upon the passage of House Bill 100, which did not pass out of the regular session. The $500 million for private school vouchers, by definition, is not public school, but regardless, it was also contingent upon the passage of House Bill 100, which did not pass. The $49.4 million for virtual education was contingent upon the passage of House Bill 681, which did not pass. The $60 million in new instructional facility allotment funding is a restoration of funding legislators cut last session, and so it just restores funding to the 2021 levels. The $307 million for instructional materials is also funding restoration from a cut from 2021, bringing schools back to the previous funding levels, and should not be described as new funding. The actual new dollars are $500 million for curriculum and $300 million for safety, both of which fall short of what we actually spend. The $588.5 million is an investment into the broken TRS Active Care Health Insurance Plan, and the $2.36 billion for the increase in the golden penny yield is actually new money and generates about $2 million for Brazos-Port ISD. On the left is where we stand today as it relates to adopting a 2023 tax rate. The comptroller's statewide value assumption is a 4.43% growth rate with an additional 8.25 cents from House Bill 1. Our 2022 taxable values are just under $10.4 billion as adjusted by the comptroller value study, with our current maximum compressed tax rate of 86.77 cents. This is our Tier 1 tax rate only, as our total tax rate includes the additional 5 M&O pennies and then the 21.53 INS pennies. The 2023 certified values from the Brazoria County Appraisal District are at $12.6 billion. With a record number of protests and still another month to go before we get our certified estimate, I'm using $12.1 billion for the tax rate plan. After applying the statewide value growth assumption and the additional 8.25 cents that's appropriated from this session, the state compressed rate before any special session is 79.5 cents. So based on our local taxable value growth of 16%, I'm estimating that we will reduce the 2023 tax rate by 10.55 cents. So my projections have a decrease in our current tax rate of just over 10.5 cents. Outside of House Bill 1, legislators failed to agree on any additional property tax relief proposals during the regular session. While both wanted property tax compression, the Senate also wanted an increase in the homestead exemption, while the House wanted to lower the appraisal cap. Governor Abbott called a special session on property tax relief focused solely on tax rate compression. Lawmakers met the following day for the special session. The Senate passed a bill that included tax rate compression and an increase in the homestead exemption, just as they did during the regular session. The House passed a bill that included tax rate compression, and that is it, and they adjourned, sending a clear message to the Senate that they will not negotiate on the topic any further. Abbott has since stated that he will call special session after special session after special session until a solution is reached. With property tax relief being a higher priority than school finance, we are in a holding pattern in terms of how and when the state will meet to legislate the additional $4.9 billion that was appropriated in House Bill 1 for school funding that is still on the table. The bottom line for schools is that both property tax bills will hold districts harmless so that there is no loss of revenue to school districts based on further tax rate reduction. The state has not increased the basic allotment since 2019, while the Texas Comptroller has reported inflationary increases of 14.5%. The current basic allotment is $6,160, and to keep pace with inflation, the basic allotment should have been increased by over $900. That would cost the state approximately $13.1 billion over the next 2 years. The state is choosing to prioritize reducing property taxes, which does benefit taxpayers, but it's not an investment into our public schools. Just like other businesses and individual family households, school districts have faced the rising costs of fuel, utilities, insurance, safety, and security. Presented here are the actual increases that Brazosport ISD has experienced since 2019. A 43% increase for fuel, 13% in utilities, 59% increase in property insurance for 20% of the previous coverage levels. And then a 59% increase in safety and security spending. And then over the same period of time, Brazosport ISD has increased teacher pay by over 8%. As previously presented when adopting the Brazosport ISD legislative priorities, Texas ranks in the bottom 10 nationwide for per student funding, around $4,000 under the national average. So it's quite disappointing and frustrating given the surplus lawmakers have that they failed to make adjustments to the simplest part of the school finance formula, the basic allotment. We do anticipate that the governor will call a special session later in the fall to potentially take up school finance, but unfortunately the timing of that creates uncertainty when we're trying to adopt the 2024 budget. Headed into the session, funding for safety and security was a priority of the governor. And while they did manage to pass House Bill 3, lawmakers should be embarrassed that the increase was 28 cents per student in average daily attendance. And then in addition to that, there's a $15,000 allotment per campus. It comes with additional mandates that are clearly unfunded, placing the additional financial burden on districts who are already struggling to balance their budgets. The House Bill 3 allotment for Brazosport ISD is estimated to generate $328,000, which is a $218,000 increase to the current safety allotment. Our annual operating budget includes over $1.8 million in costs associated with funding 20 BISD police officers, a coordinator of safety and security, and 17 campus safety specialists. I will add that they passed Senate Bill 30, which allocates $1.1 billion for grants to assist schools in implementing the new school safety initiatives. However, Senate Bill 30 does not make it clear on how the grant will be distributed or what exactly it can be used for other than school safety initiatives. So presumably it will be interpreted and decided by the Commissioner of Education at a later date, and will create additional work for the district to apply for and manage those dollars. So in addition to the basic allotment that has not been adjusted for inflation and missing the mark on the funding for safety and security, there are other areas where the state is failing to adequately fund the cost of providing services. Special education, career technology, gifted and talented, state comp ed for our students at risk, bilingual, early education, dyslexia services, and college and career readiness. I presented this slide, which is our actual cost in red compared to the state required spending levels that we generated in fiscal year 2022. And so last year, I'm going to talk a little bit about our numbers. Last year, we were going to end the budget year with a $12.6 million surplus as a result of some one-time supplemental revenue tied to several 313 agreements. Instead, these dollars were transferred into our capital projects fund for a future use to be determined. The current year, the projected deficit is sitting at $11 million. So we do have an option to transfer those funds back from capital projects, which would bring the projected deficit for the current year to $550,000. Fund balance would then be $49.5 million, which will continue to exceed the TEA optimum fund balance by $11 million. This will help bridge the gap as we continue to wait and see what potentially might come from a special session later this fall, as well as continue to reduce spending while prioritizing competitive compensation for our staff. These continue to be our budget priorities as we navigate the process of having to reduce spending to balance the budget. And then at your seat, I've printed a detailed copy of the budget reductions that we've identified to date. And then on the slide is a summary, consolidating NAY with the other Lake Jackson elementary schools, and then Velasco and Lanier saves over $1 million. We have identified and reduced $684,000 in administrative and central office positions. Campus staffing reductions based on enrollment ratios and student selection is $1.4 million. $325,000 in supplemental pay, $66,000 reduced from campus discretionary budgets, $454,000 of curriculum resources that will be funded from the instructional materials allotment, and then $428,000 from our department discretionary budgets have been reduced. And we do have some additional expenditures, $642,000 in additional special education teachers and support. We've adjusted the elementary assistant principal ratio to 600 to 1, which will cost $225,000 for the additional support. An increase of $73,000 for special education day programs, and then $120,000 in fixed costs like the cost of utilities and insurance. And then the budget assumptions represent a net reduction of $3.3 million in spending. And so to summarize, on the last page of your budget assumptions document, it's also presented here, the revenue and expenditure changes. Revenue has been updated based on the taxable values and the projected tax rate as previously reviewed. And then I've also adjusted the local revenue for an increase in interest earnings as rates continue to rise, and then the decrease in that one-time 313 revenue. And then a reduction to federal revenue for the amount of indirect costs associated with the ESSER programs that are ending. And then these changes net $108,000 reduction in total revenues when compared to the current adopted budget. And then with the net reduction of spending at $3.3 million, the adopted deficit would be $7.2 million. That includes the $3.4 million of contingencies that we'll continue to allocate. So if those aren't spent, we would end the year with a $3.8 million deficit. I've placed the revised 5-year projections at your table, which shows the proposed transfer back from capital project fund in the current year to end with a $550 million deficit and keep our unassigned fund balance at $55.2 million, which is sufficient to cover the current proposed deficit for 2024 and sustain a fund balance that meets and exceeds the TEA optimum level. This is prior to allocating any funds for teacher and staff pay raises and prior to any school finance legislation that could potentially come later this fall. And so the current proposed budget for 2024 does have a $7 million deficit prior to allocating any funds for raises. However, Brazosport ISD remains committed to recruiting, developing, and retaining highly effective staff. compensation increases have remained a top budget priority, even among the budget constraints and the need to reduce spending. The state appropriated $4.5 billion that is still on the table, and we anticipate the governor will call a special session in September to take up school finance. An increase in the basic allotment would provide new money for us to provide compensation increases. Current law requires 30% of any increase to the basic allotment to be applied to teacher pay raises. So the challenge for us is the special session does not align with our normal time frame for compensation and budget adoption. So our plan is to present the compensation plan for approval in July, and then pending the outcome of any special finance session, bring the plan back to the board for an amendment and a pay raise recommendation. For every 1% raise, it costs the district about $1 million. We do plan to recommend a 3% raise that will be retroactively applied to the 2024 contract year. We value the contributions of our staff and will also have a recommendation for the board to consider and approve a one-time retention stipend in July at the July board meeting that will be payable in the employee's first paycheck on the new contract year. So at this time, it's a report only and no action is required, but I'll be happy to answer any questions.
That's a lot.
Yes.
I've got a few, but does anybody else have some questions? Does the board have any questions or comments for Ms. Kelly?
I've got an observation after spending 3 days we spent. This is a statewide dilemma, not just ours. And we're being held hostage by the state government. And our kids are the ransom, and that's not right.
True. I have no questions.
Go ahead, Mr. Swerter.
Along those lines, we complete failure by our Texas legislature, House and Senate. Many of our local elected officials, both in the Senate and the House, have not prioritized education. They have prioritized vouchers over that and property tax relief at the cost of any type of school improvement at all. We came into a session with a clear need for basic allotment and safety and security issues. And anything that's been passed to date is a net cost to us and not additional money from a safety and security standpoint. We continue to prioritize it in the district, but what they continue to do is not helping. And we need teachers and public to get involved because they're, once again, going to time this in a way that makes it very difficult for us to do anything meaningful for our children and our teachers, which are so critically important to what we do. That being said, a couple questions. Explain to me the 313 adjustment.
So the 313 revenue is made up of hold harmless, so revenue hold harmless portion, and then supplemental one-time money. And so the calculation of the hold harmless is using prior year values. And so we were able to collect some one-time hold harmless money that really was supplemental in nature.
I forgot about that. I was trying to go back up to remember where I had on my points, but I wanted to. Oh, on tax rate. Is the bill passed for compression?
So the 8.25 cents was part of House Bill 1.
All right, so that passed, so we will be able to account for that in our tax rate.
So part of the 10-cent reduction that I'm estimating is the 8.25.
Okay.
And so what they're arguing about now is any additional compression or caps to appraisal increases or additional homestead exemption.
And the proposed, they're pretty close on the compression piece. The homestead is and the business one is the home.
Yeah, but any additional legislation tied to property tax relief will likely trigger an election for it to go to the voters in November. And so if it passes, then it would be retroactive to the rate that we adopt. So we're moving forward with the rate calculation as we have it today because any additional compression will have to go to the voters in November. Not our, voters across the state, yeah.
Would that happen in November?
Yes.
And I think the goal is that to get to 21, right? 21 cents? cents or is it 28 cents?
Well, 16 and a half from the House side, and then the Senate doesn't have any additional compression. They've got the,
Would Homestead have to go to the election or just
so
the regular?
what has to go is the limit in spending. So they're asking, the voters have to approve the cap in spending on that's constitutionally tied to how much they can spend of the surplus.
All right, so it doesn't affect our tax rate setting,
That we adopt.
correct? Okay.
Yeah.
And the only thing that'll be holding us up is if they do any additional money changes to the formula in September, October, whenever they come back in session again.
Correct, on the school finance side.
All right. Call your representative.
Any other questions from the board? So mine's a little more local, because it doesn't seem that anything we do that's local is gonna make a big change in Austin. It's gotta be from Austin. But so particularly our folks, our potential raises, supplemental, whatever, I mean, I have to assume every other district's in the same exact position we're in.
In terms of when and the timing of when they want to approve a compensation increase, you do have some districts that are approving one now, and if the special session does increase the basic allotment, they will be having to increase it again based on
Right.
the overall increase to their particular district. Right now, current law is 30%, House Bill 100 as introduced was 50%. So we're not really sure the amount that they would tie to teacher compensation of any increase to the basic allotment, other than what current law says, which is 30%.
So I talked to a lot of districts, and most of them were similar, in a similar situation as ours, which means that they weren't gaining a lot of students or they were losing students. Clearly, some areas, some districts, some places are having great amount of growth, and so, you know, their ADA or whatever is still on the rise, whereas ours is more stagnant or decreasing. But so, for the most part, our local other school districts, I mean, you know, West Columbia and Sweeney and Angleton, I mean, they have to be in about the same position we're in. So are they all, and I'm asking for stuff you can't really answer, but, I mean, are they planning significant pay raises when the money is stagnant,
Yeah,
put it that way?
My understanding is Columbia Brazoria is moving forward with a raise prior to any school finance session, but I cannot speak to the rest of the district. I have spent all my time in BISD and not
Yeah, no, I'm
focused on what, Christy or Danny may be able to answer what other districts are
So,
planning.
my last thought, and it's not really so much a question for you, but so, I've talked to a few of our personnel, and I mean a few, but, the feedback I've received, which is minimal, is most of, and these are teachers, they are more interested in maintaining people than necessarily getting a raise. So, how do we verify that that's the idea across the district? So, instead of everybody getting $1,000, they'd rather see more personnel rather than us cut a few and then give a raise to the remaining ones. So, I don't know how to make that happen, but it's just a thought. So, I mean, we still pay pretty good. I talked to one school district and they pay $36,000 a year. So, I still feel like we're in a great shape, even though our area is different than their area.
So we did the budget priority survey back in February, I think, and, you know, principal, you guys completed it as a board, and we had some discussion in our budget workshop about compensation, prioritizing available funds for compensation versus quantity of personnel and support, and it's certainly a fine line to balance, because we want to make sure that we provide, you know, enough support, but, and if you're talking about my individual raise, would I forego a raise to, you know, save all of the people in my department? Certainly, but at the same time, we have to prioritize competitive compensation, or we lose quality people.
Well, and when we asked to cut a little more, nobody wanted to cut anything.
Right.
So,
It's a balance.
okay, that was more just a frustration comment than a question. Okay, yeah, call your representative.
Just to speak to that a little bit, though, I mean, the basic allotment is our problem, right? We have seen, this is a good slide to be accidentally stuck on right now, but, I mean, the increases just from general operating expenses, without massive student influx, it's not sustainable, right? No matter what we do, right? Raises are always gonna be an issue. Salary's 87% of our budget. It's always gonna be our major problem, not problem, major hurdle.
Yeah.
And then when you add on property insurance going up ridiculously and having to significantly reduce our coverage, utilities, everything else that we're all dealing with at home, right? It's a non-winning formula, and I follow a lot of people on Twitter from across the state on these issues, and every major district is having these big, small, in-between, urban, rural, all of them are having similar issues that they're having to deal with. I read one, it was a small West Texas guy, and his budget is minimal. I mean, it's minimal. Maybe one of our campuses' whole budget, and you know, he hasn't been able to do anything for anyone in like 6 years, just because of their lack of additional enrollment. And, they're just trying to keep the doors open. So, basic allotment is our problem, along with safety and security, the two biggest issues.
Well, they did create 40 positions for safety and security at the state level.
We appreciate them telling us what we need to do
Yeah.
and not funding it.
Yeah.
They're all gonna get a car.
If they have any other good,
Tell us what
they
we're
have any
doing.
other good suggestions, they just need to let us know.
They did 40 at the state level.
Yeah,
The ESCs.
and they all get a car. We told them, they all get a car.
I just have a comment, more of a kind of question from, maybe I'll answer here in a minute. I know as far as advocacy and really, going out and getting more money for public schools in general, it's been coming from the different school boards, from around the state. But do y'all know of, or have you heard of any grassroots public school type advocacy groups or programs that are coming from actual teachers or parents?
There are a number of them across the state that are actively engaged. There's a number of them in the Houston area. There's a bunch of them that are statewide.
Do you think if we ever connected, with them and tried to do something that locally, would it affect the local representatives that really have not been helping them? I don't know how they actually feel.
I think, my personal opinion, I've talked to all of them, and their sole focus is property tax relief. They're not gonna do anything for schools until property tax gets taken care of. And the governor's holding 100% of all that on that issue.
Just thought if we had other grassroots.
And all you have to know about the property tax issue is what the House did. Nothing got passed during session.
Right.
Went to immediate special session. House repassed their bill that they passed originally and immediately closed session. So they couldn't even do anything more, no negotiation back and forth. They were only open for 3.5 hours, I think it was, in special session. They had 30 days, and they closed in 3.5 hours for them with that. And Senate stayed open, but they didn't do anything either. So, this is I'd say something, but it's a match between the governor and the lieutenant governor.
Yeah, okay. I just thought there was some way that, if we could get the fire going and some of the others, but I understand what he's
Well,
saying.
they're holding everything hostage until property taxes. I think that's a winning issue.
Any other from the board? Anybody from the audience wanna jump in?
Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Our next report
Bless
is
you.
I know.
is our bond planning and construction update, Mr. Alex Renee. How you like following that?
Yeah.
I'm
Should've
not
let him
going
go
to be
first.
talking about anything like she just talked about, but she does a great job. Good evening. In accordance with Board Policy CB Local, it's my pleasure to present the planning and construction update for the 2019 bond program. As of June 2023, total POs issued of 79.81% completed or in progress. We'll start with Brazos Wood High School. This is the last and final phase of the B Wood High School project, and this is at the lower part of the picture is the reconfiguration of the parking lot in front of the Ninth Grade Center and CTE. And then the first phase of the two-part phase this summer of rebuilding the back road. And it's the back road that comes along the side of CTE and circles around and comes back towards the blue field improvements. This is the front entry, which you all have seen. It's looking fantastic. That project is moving along and will be finished before the first game.
Doesn't look like that today.
No, sir.
It almost did.
You know, we're
Almost
always,
done.
we're always excited when we don't have any rain, but now the heat is crazy, so
Yeah.
that absolutely slows down construction, especially when they're working on outdoor portions, such as the concession stand. I did not get a chance to go by there today. This was taken last Thursday, and so we are finally getting a roof on the building. It's a simple block structure, so there's not a lot to do once we get it dried in, other than paint and some electrical and plumbing, which is ongoing. And this is a ground view of the concession stand. This is interior view. The interior of the concession stand has not changed any. It's the same space. It's just being totally reconfigured. This is inside the men's restroom. They're both very similar, and so they're very large and adding much needed space over there. This is the visitor side concession stand, which is now a smaller concession stand and storage room. It's not working well today.
Before you jump to that one, are we still putting in the road on the scoreboard end for bus, for band and all that? Is that not happening anymore?
No, sir. That did not make it into the project.
We ran into detention drainage requirements.
Right.
We were asked to put in a big detention pond.
I had somebody ask about that congestion in the parking lot, and so I thought that was still on, I didn't know it was been shut.
One thing we do have, and we were able to get in there, and don't know if it shows up in this picture. I'm gonna beat this thing on the table. Over to the far right, we had like a gravel circle that kind of circled back there. A bus couldn't make the circle or anything, but we've got two long concrete drives that an 18-wheeler can back into, and so it will actually hold two of them, one on each side. They're parallel to each other, and then they're connected down towards the restrooms, but only a regular vehicle can make that circle. So that will help with some of the larger vehicles to back in there. Okay, over at Brasford Fieldhouse. At the middle of the picture, that is where the concrete parking lot will go, where the old field house was, and that should get poured this week. And then that will have most of all of the concrete, with the exception of sidewalks, completed there. And this is taken from the levee side, looking towards the back of the building. And then this is looking different view. This is from where the old field house was, looking towards the front entry. The front entry is in the far background, a tall structure in the back.
So all that would be like concrete to drive around there, because that would hurt the pool.
That's all concrete where the old field house was, and then the driveway will connect to the concrete that's already in place. And then that circles around all the way back to CTE and ends up on 2nd Street. That is not a public driveway or anything. It will be gated off. It's a fire lane.
Okay.
Okay, this is when you go in from the front entry. The reception is on the right. And we walked this building with Coach Zeller and BSN, which does the weight room equipment, the weight room floor, and the graphics, and so they could get a look at the building and do their field measurements for the graphics. That was done about a little over, almost 2 weeks ago, I guess. This is the first group restroom that you come to after you go through the security vestibule, and we've got all the finishes in place. I have a feeling that one already has the epoxy flooring in place. And that's the main main corridor with the weight room on the left. And there's the weight room. And this is one of the locker rooms. You can see the epoxy flooring in place. That is, with the lighting and cameras and all, it's not really that dark. It's a little bit lighter than that. This is one of the locker rooms. You can see the lockers in place. Again, this is mostly a concrete block building, so it moves very quickly from this point on. We've got ceilings in place and lighting and
That
all
other
that.
picture.
The locker room?
The locker room.
How wide is that?
That's not very dang wide to get dressed.
There's multiple ones. These are from the small, I can't remember exactly which sport this particular one is. I think this is one of the girls. There's multiple ones, maybe 3 or 4 that are just like this one.
I don't know.
Jones needs some width too.
Well, the picture, the picture.
Yeah, it's like that corridor over at Phoenix. It looks smaller. And this is the boys' locker room where they have do the laundry with the pass-through lockers. And then over at B-Port TTE, David's going to click on the link, and we're going to see a video from the ribbon cutting. The groundbreaking.
David's so talented.
Started out wet, but it cleared off just in time. Okay, this slide is showing the phasing plan, and which I believe you have copies of this that are easier to read than they are on this slide. The blue areas are the new addition in the front, and then the new shop building in the back, which those are both under construction now. And then the green area to the left of the existing building, that is currently under construction, and it will be completed before school starts this year. And then the yellow side will be done next summer. This is a drone shot of the entire Beewood campus. You can see the new parking lot addition in front of the main entry. Did I say Beewood?
Yes.
I'm sorry. And then, of course, the CTE addition, and then the field house in the back. And this is a close-up view of the parking lot. It's going to be very helpful, but that will, of course, be open when school starts. This is the ground view. And then this shows the new addition in front of CTE. Closer view. And this is from the rear of the campus, looking at the back of CTE. Over to the right, you can see where the new shop building goes. And this entire project throughout the entire campus, as well as Hopper Field, has an enormous roadmap of site utilities that are in place, and some have been there since the early 50s. And so they're not as well documented, and it's there's been so many additions and renovations over the years, so there's lots of tie-ins, a lot of old stuff, and things of that nature. So it's been pretty complex, and so it's taken us a while to get to this point. Now we'll start seeing things come out of the ground, and it'll move very quickly.
Heard there was some gaps one day.
Sorry?
Heard there was some gaps over there one day.
Yeah, we've had to cut the gas off several times. One that they did hit, it was at a tie-in, and there was never any danger or anything like that. But we were spoiled by Brazos Wood High School's project, because we
Clean power.
never, ever had an unplanned outage, which is unheard of. It just doesn't happen like
You're on
that.
plantation property, is why.
Right.
When they said you were, there was nothing there.
Yeah,
But Brazos, where I was wondering if they did gas lines and stuff, so it was all free.
yeah, there's just so much underground there. Okay, this is inside the existing building, and, all of the demo is already, completed there. Now we're putting things back. And, it's mostly the audio-visual and, culinary areas, and then the new green room and journalism. And, the room in the back that all the metal studs are up on, that's the new green room.
I'd have been a much better student if we'd had all this when I was there.
It certainly helps. Over at Griffith Elementary, you can see the new stacking lanes that we have, that are going in at the top of the photo, and then the, parking lot addition, down at the bottom. We should see concrete going in over there, tomorrow or Wednesday. And this is a closer view of that. And this is a triple stacking lane. And over at Polk, concrete is on the ground. They started at, about 6 o'clock this morning, and, I believe that they finished 100% of it. And, this is also at Polk. This is where the main pickup and drop-off will be of the students. That's a canopy that comes out from the side of the building, and we're doing a canopy extension on that existing concrete so they can, kind of stage the kids for their pickup. Also at Polk Elementary, through maintenance, they're, putting in new flooring throughout the entire campus, as well as new furniture. And then at Lanier Middle School, this is, the area in the wing closest to Velasco Elementary that they are doing the new group restrooms. And at Rasco Middle School, all of the toilet fixtures and flooring and partitions are being replaced in the group restrooms. And, I have this photo in there just to show that they've started removing the fixtures and all. And Stephen F. Austin, they're doing the new flooring, furniture replacement, and some, adding a couple of walls, and then in one of the two rooms that are directly behind the main building, they are doing some extensive renovations there, which were much needed. This was the music room.
That room's super nice, I remember.
It's going to be.
It will be. It's going to be brand new.
I'm surprised we had to do anything to that one.
I'll be happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Any questions from the board for Alex?
Six lining.
No one can say we haven't improved the district from a, facility standpoint.
Absolutely.
Every campus has been touched, and, it's not just lipstick we've been putting on either.
I get the fun job.
Yeah.
Any comments from the audience before we move forward? All right, thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Next item, or next report that we have is the student outcomes update, the dual credit enrollment. Mr. Brian Cole.
Good evening. In accordance with Board Policy EH Local and District Goal, Brazos-Port ISD will provide a rigorous and relevant learning experience. It is my pleasure this evening to present a student outcomes report on dual credit enrollment. We'll start this evening by taking a look at each of our high school campuses, their enrollment history with dual credit, the top 5 courses of enrollment, and some success data for each of the campuses. Start at Brazos-Wood High School. This chart shows Brazos-Wood's dual credit enrollment since the 18-19 school year. You can see that the number of students, both in the fall and spring, remains relatively low the past 2 school years. However, this year did show an increase in the number of students that participated in dual credit for 22-23. The top 5 courses for Brazoswood High School for dual credit are Senior English, which is Composition and Rhetoric, Learning Frameworks, which is the introductory course for dual credit, Federal Government, which is a required course, United States History as well, and then Introduction to Humanities, which can also serve as a senior year English course. As we look at success data at Brazoswood High School, this slide helps us to see the success rates of students in dual credit at Brazoswood. The top chart shows GPA for the 2021 school year and 2022 school year. It takes a little while for them to calculate and tabulate GPA, so we don't have it for the most recent school year. And the bottom chart, though, does show us the success rates for the 21-22 and 22-23 school years, which is essentially the number of students, or the percentage of students that passed the academic courses. So if we take a look at the top here with the GPA, we can see that Brazoswood students saw an increases in the GPA from 2021, which had a 3.11, and then to a 3.20 in 2022, which is an increase in GPA year over year. As we look at the bottom of the slide, we see the most recent data we have for success on the bottom chart shows that 82% of Brazoswood High School students successfully completed dual credit in 21-22, and in 22-23 that's up to 87% of students. Both of these far exceed the non-dual credit student performance that's only at 65% this past year. Moving on to Brazosport High School. As we look at Brazosport High School, their enrollment has seen a gradual increase over time, but it still remains relatively constant. Their top 5 courses for enrollment are, once again, the top 2 remain the same, with a Senior English focused on composition and rhetoric. Learning Frameworks is the introductory course to dual credit. United States History, public speaking is different for them, and then Principles Economics is also different for them. But those are the top 5 courses at Brazosport High School. Once again, we'll see some similar success data here. Brazosport High School students' GPAs also increased from 21 to 22. Started at 2.51 and then up to 2.88 in the following year. When we look at their success data, we do see huge gains in success, starting at 66% in the 2021-2022 school year, but this most recent year was at 80%, which far surpasses the non-dual credit peers at 65% as well. The final chart that I have here does show you the enrollment trends for this most recent spring for multiple high schools in the area, not just the Brazosport and Brazoswood schools that we saw earlier, but you can see similar trends at Angleton, Columbia, and Sweeney High School across Brazosport College service area. Some key highlights from this data is that enrollment does remain relatively flat for dual credit, but we have seen student success increase. We believe this is in part due to, we do have stricter requirements that we've imposed the past couple of school years for students that are getting to have BISD paid tuition and fees. So students that take academic courses have to have A's and B's and have not previously failed a dual credit class in order for us to pay for their dual credit, which is, we've seen the success data for that. And then additionally, Brazosport College has hired some success coaches that work with certain students that have a certain amount of credit to continue to help them succeed as they move forward. And they do have a few support staff on the high school campuses as well that help students navigate their experience with Brazosport College. So at this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. This is report only, no action is needed.
Any questions from the board? Yes, sir.
It's still shocking to me that the number of students that aren't taking advantage of this.
Preschool.
Yeah, it's unbelievable to me that we didn't see any type of increase from that, but it would have been frustrating. But
It's quite a bit of publicity too, wasn't it?
yeah, I still think there's for the students that I have known that aren't taking advantage of it, the barrier to entry from a application standpoint is tough. Some of the FASBA or whatever that one is, federal, whatever, I think that's an issue. I know a lot of people that don't want to give over that information.
Right.
a great program. Both of my kids took full advantage of it, and one will graduate in 3 years from college, and the other one will probably be pretty close to that. So it's frustrating not to see the increase that we have, but I'm glad people are doing it and succeeding in doing it, but I really thought we were going to see a pretty good increase, especially since we weighted the same, and you know, you can, if you do it right, you can come out of there with an associate's degree pretty easily after 4 years of high school, and with all of the 8-period days that we have and taking advantage of this, you know, it's nothing but a great program for our kids. Even allowing them to do more electives because of this, right? Fulfilling English credits and your history credits and some of your math credits even prior to your senior year, allowing them to do some of the fun things. My daughter took 4 electives her last senior year. You know, so being able to do those things is important for these kids too. So it comes with other additional benefits that take advantage of.
Well, I know the main barrier during my time at the college, through our marketing research, the main barrier to them entering college, not dual credit, was the FAFSA. And so I know at the time, they were getting different, you know, student workers or different ones just to have like FAFSA workshops or come anytime and we'll help you with your FAFSA, you know, where people could come and get help because it's a pain in the neck.
Absolutely.
And so maybe that might be something for future that we could do for the high school students, if that's the barrier that, you know, they don't want to have to go through all that, that we could have a couple, you know, hands-on workshops to get the college, get their peer recruiters and stuff to come over and do that for us, just a suggestion.
Well, one of the great things, one of the unfunded mandates is that every student has to have finished the FAFSA or their parent has to say, we don't want them to. So Mrs. Hasso and her team and people from the college have been able to come over and work with many of our students, but we still have a lot of them, like you shared, that don't want to because of some of the private information that they feel like is being shared.
How do we ensure that every student or their parents are aware that this is an option? And the reason I'm asking is because I interact with some younger kids through church and also through another organization, and several kids who are going into their sophomore year this year, I ask them, are you aware of this program? And they've all told me no. And I'm like, I don't understand that. Now, a couple of the ones, they're real slackers, so they're probably been told, and they wouldn't pay attention anyway. But one of the kids is a young girl from Brazos Wood, and she's in all AP classes. So, I mean, she's not a slacker, and I asked her, are you familiar with the dual credit? And she didn't have any idea. So, how do we verify that they're being made aware? I mean, there might be signs all up and down the hallway, and they still don't look at it. Do we make them sign something that they've been made aware? I mean, I don't know. I want every kid, I don't want any kid to graduate and go, hey, I didn't know about that, you know?
So each student should be sitting down one-on-one with their counselor every year to go through planning and for options for them. So that should be part of the conversation with each student. Now, maybe there are some opportunities for some school messengers to parents and things along those lines, advertising some of the opportunities so there can be more robust dialogue. But there should be some one-on-one conversations that every student's having with their academic advisors. And we have dual credit counselors who have offices right with the counselors and things along those lines. So there is information that is out there.
Oh, I'm sure it's there.
Yeah.
I mean, I know 15-year-olds and they're, you know.
Yes.
Unless they're being
Spoon-fed,
you know, they're not paying attention.
One of the things that should bring attention, for some students at least, is that senior off periods are tied to completing college, career, and military readiness, and one of the options that will be made available to students is dual credit. So some students that may have never paid attention before and are like, where's my off period? They may be able to go, oh, you know what, maybe I'll take dual credit since I could do that and get ahead, and it's free, right?
Yeah,
So,
I mean, and that's my big point. I mean, they have a opportunity unlike any I was ever afforded. So I want them to get the most out of it. Because some kids, they're not going to get much more.
Right.
Especially if they don't start now. Because that's what we discussed. When we kind of went to this, a lot of kids, they don't even go to college because it's overwhelming. If we can get them started younger, then it's just
Right.
it's better. Anyway.
This year, we did send out school messengers about the one-stop shops that parents could go out to and with their kids and get registered all in one time. Like, there's so many hoops to jump through for dual credit, but this, you get to jump through them all at once, right? So that went out to every parent from 8th grade, or exiting 8th graders through exiting 11th graders. So there has been some communication to everyone, but choosing to act on that is a different story.
I know. That wasn't a slight towards
No,
our
absolutely.
people. I just,
It's been 11 years since I retired, but in the 30-something years I taught, getting parents to come to open house was like pulling eye teeth, and that's just a one time. And so, it's a
Maybe we could have a dual credit booth at the bonfire meeting.
There you go.
probably get them there. Any other questions?
Announce the football game.
Yeah, it's a football game. Did you know your child could be in dual credit on the billboard for that?
Any comments from the audience before we move forward? All right, thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Cole. Next item that we have under our report, the increasing and strengthening family engagement and community engagement. There you go.
Okay, good evening, board members, Mr. Massey, and the audience. It is my pleasure to share with you all of the amazing things that we are doing to help increase, strengthen family engagement and community engagement. Title III, Part A funded, local education agencies and ESCs are required to provide supplemental parent outreach training and activities, family outreach and training and family literacy services, and community participation programs to English learners, immigrant students, and their families. In the next several slides, you will see examples of activities that our parent-family liaison, who is with us here tonight, Ms. Tanya Montiel, has provided our families and students in Brazosport ISD. Having just completed her second year, she has been able to provide support to hundreds of families and help to make a connection between home and school. Our department partnered at the very beginning of school in August with their back-to-school bash with Brazos Mall for their annual back-to-school bash and provided books for families, all while sharing our contact information for those in need of specific back-to-school information. We're always finding an opportunity to get our information out there to families. We are proud to have completed another successful year of English classes through Brazosport College. Our parent and family liaison hosts our largest class in her classroom at Freeport Intermediate. By hosting the class, she is able to support families firsthand and provide them with district and school information. So you can see pictures of our families participating in the ESL classes through Brazosport College there. During one of many informational sessions that were offered, parents learned how to access our parent self-serve option in Teams. It's the parent portal to look up grades, attendance, and discipline records for their students. They also learned how to draft an email to their teacher or campus counselor with questions and learn how to use Google Translate to then translate it and email it. While evaluating the use of Parent Portal, Tanya found that 11 of the 13 newcomer students who were failing 2 or more classes last year passed all of their classes this year because their parents were actively engaged with the Parent Portal and able to check their grades. In an effort to help guide intermediate students into many career path options available, Mrs. Montiel, along with our amazing CTE coordinators at Brazosport and Brazoswood, provided a guided tour of our CTE buildings. Here, parents were able to see the many career options that were offered to our students and ask questions about CTE, And again, you notice these took place in October, which was before they had their counselor meetings to plan for their upcoming schedule. During our basic computer skills course, parents not only learned basic computer literacy, they also received a book that they used to practice reading in English. The picture in the middle of this slideshow shows examples of the products that the parents created in their computer literacy class taught by Mrs. Montiel herself. We continued our fall sessions on safe schools with sessions with our police officers, our CTE tours, family nights at FIS, hands-on activities with our Texas A&M AgriLife Extension partner, and sessions on how parents can become volunteers or substitutes in our district, which several have gone on to become substitutes in the district. Here's some additional photos from the sessions with the Texas A&M AgriLife Extension. They actually have a person come out and teach parents how to eat healthier. They make recipes, and they are able to participate in these, and we host those there in Ms. Montiel's classroom at Freeport Intermediate. Another way that Ms. Montiel regularly communicates with parents and students is through Remind. She regularly communicates with more than 500 parents through the Remind app. As you can see here, parents receive a monthly newsletter each month that can be translated into more than 50 languages with just a click of a button. The newsletter highlights events and shares important information about upcoming events, one of which is the dual credit courses that we offer. Additionally, she sends reminders about grading periods and attendance. And although campuses have supports in place to address attendance concerns, we believe her efforts have been an additional contributor to overall improved attendance. Our district saw a 1.79% improvement with attendance. In December, we enjoyed visiting with parents, hearing feedback from them, and sharing our appreciation for their tremendous effort in supporting their children during a parent appreciation event. We've picked right up in January with our Brazosport College English classes, communication with parents before and after each grading period, and we hosted a watch party for a TEA virtual parent session. Although the majority of our supports are geared towards older students, Mrs. Montiel visited each bilingual campus and shared the importance of reading every day. She also provided them with her contact information and gave away free books for them to practice reading. So you can see these are her sharing information with the elementary bilingual students. We gained an insight into the daily challenges of our high school newcomers, which are 3 years or less in our country. These specific students were either first-year students, some of which just enrolled in our schools in November or April. And then we also invited last year's newcomers to come back and share their experiences with them. They played team-building games, shared information about courses, and answered questions. There she also shared with them the CTE opportunities and the dual credit. At Brazosport, our valedictorian, who was also a former bilingual student, Jennifer Ontiveros, shared a message, a motivational message with our students in Spanish. We are thankful for the support that Mrs. Montiel and our campuses have provided our parents with registration. So we ended in May with assistance with online registration. We're hopeful that this can help to increase the number of students that are registered and ready to start the school year. We ended May and the beginning of June with May walk and talk sessions at the Freeport Park. This again was through the Texas A&M AgriLife Extension. Parents learned about, again, healthy eating, and they walked the Freeport levee. They walked and talked with each other. Many of them brought their students out, some of which were excited to be there at 7, and some that were not. But we ended with about how many students that showed up on the last session?
Last night, there were like 13 students.
13 students that came out, teenagers,
Teenagers.
that came out 7 a.m. to beat the heat and to participate in the
agri-life extension activities. We're confident that the parent and family activities and communication have helped to build a better connection between school and home and ultimately improve student success. This is a report only and no action is required. At this time, I am happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board?
I don't have questions, it's outstanding.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
I love it.
Every
Thank
bit of it.
Do you, when you had the night where you discussed the parent portal, did you have a pretty good turnout for that, or was it not very?
Good
Parent
turnout for
portal
the
night?
parent portal.
Oh, yes. I am so happy to help the families. At the beginning, I'm started with this position last year, and it was like several parents that they don't know how to use the parent self-serve, especially when they are coming from another country. So, yeah, they are in several communication, and it's super great to see if they have any question, they can just send me a message through Remind, and I can just give it an answer.
She's even done a one-on-one session for some of our families that were not able to come during the school day if they're working. She's also had some parents that have taken their lunchtime to come and have a one-on-one session and learn about Parent Portal. So many more parents have learned how to navigate Parent Portal, and the students are somewhat excited because now the parents are asking them about those grades. She calls before each grading period and after, letting them know report cards are coming, ask your child about missing assignments, and so, yeah.
The Remind is just it's a large translation app.
It's a Remind app, and many of our teachers and coaches use it, and you can just, parents sign up for it, and it sends them a text message with the information, and they can get it in their native language.
Yes, because also we have families that they prefer to have this kind of communication since they are learning English, so that's easy for them just to have communication by text message because they can translate and I can have the communication.
Very good.
That's awesome. That's exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. Next item that we have under our reports are board committee reports. Anyone want to share? Our week at SLI? Anyone?
Since Jerry's not here, do you have 4 pages of
No, of course not.
We'll wait for Jerry to come back.
Yeah, Jerry's done.
I went to a dyslexia session, and I don't even know what to say.
We couldn't make it, we couldn't translate it.
They had not a game, but a little thing that what they thought that for us, what they thought the students saw, looked at, understood when they're in class, and I still don't understand it. And my wife was a dyslexia coordinator, and I still don't understand how they get them from point A, no help, to read, understand, because
It's amazing.
I don't know they need help. They need more. The dyslexia, whatever we can do for them. That was crazy. And my only other comment is AI is going to take over. So, anyway.
I'll say that, as things are not near as good as we would like for them to be, BISD is a lot better off than many districts. Many districts. And so we're very fortunate. Our staff, our teachers do a great job. All we do is give them the tools, and they have to operate those tools. They do a great job, and that's something we need to keep in mind.
It's a great time to be at BISD. Any other board reports? Reports from the shutdown?
What's it like out at BASF?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're at 2:38.
All right, next item that we have on our agenda, our next regularly scheduled board meeting is July the 17th. Next on our agenda is executive session. Executive session may be called for the purposes permitted by the Texas Opens Meeting Act, Texas Government Code, Sections 551.071 through 551.146, Sections 551.071, consultation with attorneys, Sections 551.071, on any agenda item, sections 551.072, for the purpose of discussing the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, sections 551.074, personnel matters, appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, dismissal.
Okay.
I get older by the minute.
We'll now reconvene in session. It's 9:15. Unless there is any objection, we will stand adjourned.